Hi there.
Hello, there we go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
Perfect.
that's good. Do I need to lower, higher, lower, smaller, longer?
It's okay. I tried one of these with my microphone before and it didn't work, but I've got it all set up perfectly now. So
Oh,
perfect.
that's cool. That's it. Have you got a reel to reel at the back there?
Yeah, it's a 60s Revox
Oh,
G36
wow.
Mark III. I got it from an auction a few weeks ago actually. Just really bid on it for fun. I love reel to reels and I've got other ones as well.
Yeah.
And it's like unused. It's completely like still in the box.
Oh, wow.
So it's unfortunately it's only a 2-track, and most of the tapes I have are 4-track, and
Yeah.
it's a bit agricultural, but it's a great it's a
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's cool. I'd love a reel to reel.
I'm that's a bit of a weakness of mine. I've got another one, but it's yeah, I can't have too many because they're very difficult to get working properly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they take up a lot of space, and they smell lovely. I mean, this sort of smells of valves and dust and my wife comes up, what's that horrible smell? And that's beautiful smell, valves. Oh, she doesn't. So,
The
but
wives don't understand.
they don't. I know. I'm sure you know as well. So,
I'm single, hey. I don't know that.
man, well, I'm in my little single den up here, so
You got the
she
man cave.
understands.
You got the
So
man
that's
cave.
exactly,
You need that, hey?
absolutely. Well, it's my office and my and where I do all my work and stuff. So it's my little corner. So
Do
she's
you,
quite jealous of it, really.
do you record music too? Your own music?
No, I don't. I don't. No, I play guitar and things, but
Mm-hmm.
no, I don't have the time to
Mm.
record stuff really. No, you do. Obviously, I can see.
Yeah, 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 yeah. For my sins. I actually had.
Fantastic.
Do you know Van Dyke Parks?
Yeah, sure.
I had him on a few days ago.
All right. I see the pet sounds behind you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I should have put a Beatles record up, but hey,
Well, I've
totally
got all my
forgot.
Beatles. I
Totally
could put
forgot
a.
about
I could put my. I should put my
that.
little.
Oh,
This
is
is an
that?
original reel to reel of pet
Holy
sounds
shit!
from the 60s.
Fuck.
I did a video a while ago on Beatles reel to reels, and this is one which came with a collection.
Oh my
And
god.
it sounds not too bad actually. It's only
Yeah,
it's a very slow speed 3 3/4 inch per second tape,
yeah.
but it's got that sound which suits the album really. That sort of muddy, sort of far awayness. But it's a nice little thing. So it sounds
Oh
good on
wow,
my Revox because it's 2-track mono,
that's amazing.
and that's it. So I thought
Wow.
I'd keep that one. It's nice.
Have you heard the Analog Productions Pet Sounds?
Sorry.
Have you heard the Analog Productions Pet Sounds
No,
vinyl?
no, I haven't. No,
Oh, that is amazing.
yeah.
It's
I'd love to have gone
amazing.
to one of the live shows. I mean, I think you went to one of the live ones, yeah?
I've seen Brian a few times. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No,
I haven't
but
seen
no,
him.
it's they don't come. Nobody really comes to Austria, unfortunately. We used to get Chris de Burgh and Tom Jones, but that's about as big as it got.
Wow, living at large there, hey.
Yeah, around the backwaters, yeah. So.
So, how did you get into the Beatles? Because you're definitely a massive, massive Beatles fan. I'm guessing, just a tad.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, like most people, I second generation fan, and I started off with my parents' record collection, or my mother's.
Hmm.
You know, when I was very young, picked up her Hard Day's Night and Help LPs and just played those, and that's my first musical memories, really. You know, just playing the Beatles on a little Dansette record player, and then when I was 10, I bought the Blue album, 67 to 70, and yeah, so it all sort of took off from there. You know, it was quite a sort of a lonely existence really at that time, being at school in the early 80s, and nobody knew who the Beatles were. You know,
Really?
they were like, oh well, they broke up, didn't they? You know, everyone was into ska and new wave and stuff, and there was obviously no online and no stuff, and so it was a very sort of isolating place to be at that age,
Yeah.
13, 14, and the Beatles fan, because they were at their sort of lowest sort of ebb, if you like. And you know, there was no one to talk to about it, no groups, no this and that. So I was sort of very much on my own and doing things by myself. And the only people who were were on this level were the first generation fans. They were obviously older, and fairly intimidating, actually. Sort of
Really?
yeah. So it was a tough time, but it sort of carried on, and I've sort of made it my job, if you like, now. So
Yeah.
and I'm quite happy to do that. I'm quite happy that happened.
Yeah, the Beatles is kind of like it's its own little universe. I find you could get lost in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many aspects of it. That's the beauty of it. There's so many things, so many places you can go. And if you're a collector, early on, you have to work out which part you're going to follow, because if you say I'm going to collect everything, everything, then you're in for a really big job.
God,
And I know some people who have tried to collect everything, every record from every country, every plate, every cup, every moving doll,
yeah,
which is completely overwhelming. So I stick to UK things, original stuff,
yeah,
and that's sort of where I tend to specialize, and that tends to work quite well.
yeah. What's your favorite Beatles album? That's a hard question because it
I
changes
want
for
to say
me constantly.
the one that I'm listening to is
It's always Revolver, Rubber Soul, and Magical Mystery Tour. I don't know if Magical Mystery Tour a proper album, but it kind of is now,
yeah.
really.
Well, this German one here.
Yeah.
I've got two of them here. This if you want the best sounding one, this one is the one.
Yeah,
German.
I was listening to that in your podcast. You were saying that was the best sound in stereo, is it?
Germans knew how to do stuff. I don't know. It changes. It changes through your life. What your favorite album is, and I think it's changed through my life. My favorite album is.
Yeah.
I started with A Hard Day's Night and Help, and then you grow up and you mature, tastes mature, and you sort of get to Revolver, and then to the White Album and Abbey Road, and so it different stages in your life. You like different albums, so
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
I started with Tomorrow Never Knows. That was my kind of first more like sentient of what I knew of the Beatles. Actually, no, it wasn't. Free as a Bird, because it used to be always on like some Q channel all the time, and I was like, "Fucking, this is cool." Because when my memory of the Beatles when I was young was like, you'd go to a panto and people would be singing Yellow Submarine. It was that kind of vibe. But like the Beatles are almost way bigger than they are now than when I was younger.
Yeah, when I was just getting into them, it was in 79, 1980, and of course I was just discovering all their music, and John Lennon was killed, and so that hit me really hard. It's like a lot of people, I guess, but it really sort of, like, I was just getting into it, and it was a strange time. It took me a long time to sort of get around that, but Tomorrow Never Knows, as you said, is a strange place to start, because there's nothing really else like that. You go looking for more Tomorrow Never Knows, and it's on the same album as Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. When I first heard it, I thought it was a remix because it sounded so modern. I was like, "Is this like a remix of a song?" Because I didn't know. And when you hear the mono version is way different than the stereo version. The back, there's a lot more backward stuff and different stuff and all that. That. So it's I just love that song. That's one of my favorite Beatles song. Odd one, but yeah.
No, it's not an odd one. There's the differences between the mono and the stereo, and there's the rare first day remix has a few little bits on it. But that was again the beauty of the collecting the records. The mono and the stereo were different, and you would try and hear little bits that were different, and that's a different vocal, it's a different guitar, and that was another aspect to collecting, which was exciting. There was so many things to discover.
How many Beatles records do you have?
I don't personally have a lot.
Oh, really? I mean, I thought you'd loads.
my shelves are stacked with the boneyard of what I've had over the past 20 years. So I've got like 40 copies of Revolver down there in various conditions.
Wow.
So, but I don't see them as in my collection. I've got more Scott Walker records than I have Beatles records.
I love Scott Walker.
So I don't know if you like Scott Walker. Whatever,
I love him.
But I'd rather I collect his records with a passion. The Beatles is sort of a hobby job type of thing, and I sell things to other people. But if I was in my room and I'd like to just sit and look at my Scott Walker records and listen to them.
Really, yeah.
I've got test pressings and acetates and promos and things of his. And one of the nicest things I have is a acetate of Till the Bang Comes In.
Wow.
And it's all different mixes, and it's in mono, and it's fantastic thing.
That documentary was great about him. 30th Century, was it 30th Century Boy?
30th Century Man, yeah.
30th Century Man, yeah. It's a great documentary. I've seen it in the cinema when it was out, however long ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
It was.
And it was, again, he was one of these mythical figures. Although he was still around, he was just so elusive, and any sort of tidbit of information you could get, he's in a commercial, or he'd do this, or he'd do a Bond. He did the Strange Bond track in the 90s, and it was and it was so gratifying. Not gratifying, but it was so nice. At the end of his life, he was at that Royal Albert Hall concert, and he saw that, and he saw all the artists do the cover versions and the beautiful orchestration that was in that piece, and he saw it, and because he hated listening to his own records. He really just wouldn't do it. But he wouldn't mind other people doing them, but he just hated, he'd never listened to his own stuff. And he heard these songs as he recorded them, but with other voices. And it was reported he had a huge smile on his face. He was so happy, and would say, what was I writing about, man? What was that stuff? What was I on? Because he couldn't remember writing it at all.
Yeah.
And it was just such a nice way to end, because it was a great show, and it was one of the regrets that I didn't go. It must have been a great evening.
Did they play Farmer in the City?
No, they didn't. They'd stuck mostly to the first 4 or 5 albums.
Oh, like Scott 1, Scott 2, and all
but
that.
they got the orchestra spot on, and all the arrangements were perfect. And although some of the singing was a bit dodgy, and Jarvis Cocker and all this sort of stuff, it was a triumph. So, but unfortunately, I think some bits are on YouTube, but it's well worth watching.
There's a Bowie song on that record the next day called Heat, and it's so, because I know he loves Scott Walker, it sounds so like Scott Walker, like it's unbelievably. Have you heard it?
Yeah. They were very similar. I'm sure Bowie took Scott as a big influence, and I don't know if Bowie influenced Scott. I don't think so. I don't think anybody influenced Scott. He was just his own man, wasn't he? Really. So maybe Tony Bennett or one of the crooners early on, But
it's weird where he came from and then where he ended up on a musical spectrum. It's like, whoa, it's crazy. You're like, what? Punching meat,
Yeah, well, he finally got to do what he wanted to do, and that was the great thing. He didn't have to sing Tony Hatch songs anymore and do that sort of stuff. That was just to pay the bills. Yeah. But he finally got the artistic freedom to do what he wanted, and but until the mid-70s, he couldn't do that. They had no money, so he had to sing all this schmaltz and stuff, which he did fantastically. But and then he made all those great albums at the end with the Sun Ra and the Drift and all this sort of stuff, which are crazy intense to listen to.
Oh, totally.
You've really got to be in the right frame of mind to sort of sit down, don't turn the lights off, just
romantic dinner, put on Bish Bosh.
Yeah, I could never share that sort of music with my wife. Yeah, look, sit down and listen to this with me.
Yeah, it's almost like musically I view that as music that it's like for art or something like that. It's not, I would never go and have a walk on the beach and be listening to Scott Walker. I'd probably jump in the sea,
It's pure art, isn't it? It really is just an artist making art, It's not background music. It's not music to dance to. It's not music to sort of, it's just to like sit and listen to it. That's all you can do with it. It's just pure art, and it's great. I mean, I don't listen to it a lot, but it's nice to know it's there. It exists. But I have to listen to the Beatles every day, so that's.
What did you think of the 7-inch box set that came out last year?
That was great. It's over there. Maybe can you see it? Yeah, it's over there.
Yep.
I wasn't gonna. I saw it when it first came out. I thought, I'm not buying this rubbish. It's like I've got the singles. It's going to buy this, and I didn't buy it for a long time. Then I started making the videos, and I thought, well, I'll make a video about it, and if it's rubbish, I'll say so. And a lot of people had said it was rubbish, and they said, oh, it sounds terrible. It's distorted. It sounds really rough. So I got it, and I compared it with the original single. It sounds just like the original singles, The original
Right.
singles sound rough, and it
Yeah.
sounds just like them. And
Yeah.
it's a really authentic sounding set, you know. So I say to anyone who wants to know what the original single sounds like, get the box. So it's sound
Ah.
warts and all. It's apart from Love Me Do and Please Please Me, which are different mixes.
Yeah.
The rest of it sounds just like the originals, good, bad,
Yeah.
and different. You know?
And as it gets towards the end, it actually doesn't sound as hot. It's not as
No,
hotly sound wise.
the stereo came in after. What was this? Ballad of John and Yoko was the first stereo. Yeah, once they get to the late '60s, it's good. But the early singles were cut so hot to sound loud on the systems that they had back then, so they
Yeah.
had to really cut them really loudly. And you know, I've got another set which I'm going to do another video on, the '82 set, and there's some '76 singles as well, which were cut with a different aesthetic in mind. They were cut to sound good, '70s and '80s, you know. So I'm going to do a video on those and compare those because they sound very different. You know, they're a lot more toned down and whatever.
Yeah, you know, sometimes they put the smiley face on some records and it sounds terrible.
Yeah, I've just done a video on the mobile fidelity set.
I was listening to that. I was listening to that.
With that, and it seems like in the late '70s, early '80s, everybody wanted beige and Hessian and stuff, and it all wanted sort of comfort for the ears and nothing to offend. All this audiophile stuff is cut very loud, soft, and smiley face, and it's just all a bit too safe. It was nice sounding at a certain volume on certain equipment, but you know, there's just fluff. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you audiophile stuff. Musicians generally aren't audiophiles.
Oh, I'm an audiophile.
You are, yeah?
I'm as anal as they come.
Oh, right, okay. Well, what do you think about them? What's
of like smiley face EQs?
Yeah, well, that sort of audiophile series from that sort of these audiophile
it can be a bit clinical, that kind of thing for me. You know, like I'm an audiophile in the sense of that, like like for me, Talk Spirit of Eden is a audiophile record. Like that sounds phenomenal.
Talk, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of kind of like we say Steely Dan and that kind of stuff. But I'm not as bad as I was. I think, you know, kind of super clean. I used to be like really bad with it. I'm like, oh, it has to be super clean and super this, and then it can be too clinical. You know, it's like it takes the oomph out of the music in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's exactly what this mobile fidelity stuff does. It sort of, you know, just I think when I was younger, I used to like do that on my amplifier, turn the bass up, turn the treble up, put the loudness on, and you'd get this sort of sound. And as you sort of grow up, you sort of like discover the mid-range, you know, and it's like that's what you would turn down initially, but now you sort of, wow, it sounds better with that. And yeah, again, it's just a sign of your listening maturing, you know, how different albums sound different and that sort of stuff. I mean, Pet Sounds, I mean, you have a DCC or copy of that, sort of like a copy directly from the master tape, very flat, and initially you think, oh, it doesn't sound very good, you know, it's like, where's that in it? But it's purity, it's and you have to learn to sort of deal with that, learn to sort of like that and adjust your listening. Beatles records aren't very audiophile, a lot of the early ones, but they have an energy, you know, that's what they were made for.
Yeah. The 2014 masters, I think, sound definitely the later albums sound really good.
The 14 ones, the mono ones.
Yeah,
the mono box set is very close. And I'm always saying in the videos that's the one to get. Again, it's something else which I just thought, I don't need that. I've got the originals, you know. But I thought, well, I'll get it because it has nice sleeves, and I'm so glad I did. And a lot of people regret not getting it because it's like £1,000 these days. You can't get one for £1,000.
I regret it. I was so broke when it came out first. I was living in Dublin and I was like, I'll get it whenever. And then I was like, shit, this is gone. What the fuck? It's like, can't get it now. I have a good few of the singles. I think I have 3 or 4 copies of Revolver. Because I was like, I'll just buy them. Because it seemed to be going out of thing. I said, I'll keep them. And, you know, but yeah, I don't have... Maybe I'm missing 5, I think. So that kills me. Kills me to this day.
Yeah, you'll pick them up, I'm sure. They're around. But it's a great sounding set, and they did everything just right. And what everybody, of course, wants them to do is do the same with the stereo. I don't have a 2012, but actually I've got a 2012 box coming this week. I didn't initially want it because I heard it wasn't very good, but I want to buy it to do a video on it to say it isn't very good. You know?
It's not bad. I have them all because they put out these. It was like what is it, like a monthly thing where they put out Beatles records.
The D'Agostini.
That's the one. Yeah. That's the one. So it was they were just the 2012 ones, and some of them sound, they are what they are. I just can't stand like listening to drums on one speaker and a vocal, and it does my head in, man. So mono for me all the way.
Yeah, again, that's another idea. I keep getting these ideas of videos. It's pop into my head at the minute. I'm gonna get the 2012 box. Sorry, get the 2012 box, take it out, throw the rest in the bin, and fill the box up with which I think pressing is supposed to go in there, like this German Magical Mystery Tour and the German Please Please Me, and I've got a oh, where is it? This one I just picked up recently. It's a Nimbus.
Oh, that was in that big box that you got full of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. This was a 1984. Nimbus were a mastering company based in Wales, and they were in charge of mastering the first CDs that came out in the 80s, and they were very big on classical stuff. And you can get this copy through Hi-Fi magazine or something for like £10 or something at the time, and it was cut directly from a 30 inch per second 1-to-1 copy of the master tape without anything added, very pure. Wow. So I haven't played it yet. I'm going to play it, record it, compare it, and with a stack of other different copies I've got behind me. So
it was really interesting, that video you did about the Magical Mystery Tour. I never knew that they sent those tapes. They had like copies of a copy of Jesus Christ.
Well, I think by the time that album came out in the UK in '78, everything had changed. Management had changed, office staff had changed, so nobody really knew the history of what was going on. And so they thought, oh, we need this Magical Mystery Tour. It's an American album. We'll get it from America. And not knowing that, they had all the tapes next door in the next room. They could have just put them together. But they thought, oh, we've got to get the album. Don't know why they did that. So, and of course, when MFSL wanted it, they asked for the British tape, which was a copy of their tape, which is originally a copy of their tape. So it was a monumental mess up,
Wow. Do you like the remix albums?
I've listened to I've had the White Album and Sgt. Pepper and Abbey Road. No, not really. They're interesting exercises, let's put it that way. But I listened to them once and thought, okay, well, I enjoy the outtakes more. But the problem is I listen to these albums so often that anything else sounds like wrong.
Right. Right.
I mean, everything I sell, I play. So that's a lot of time listening and whatever. And sometimes you end up not listening to the music. You're listening for the clicks and the groove wear and the faults rather than the music. But when the remixes came, I thought, well, okay, it sounds really, really different. And I don't personally like it very much, but yeah, it's just an interesting experiment, Do you like them?
I like the White Album. That's the weird thing. I never really liked the White Album as an album. I know that sounds awful because I thought it should have been one album. There's a lot of stuff that's questionable on it. And when I listened to the remix, for whatever reason, I really started liking it more than I ever liked it. I don't know why, but I just did. So there's something in the Pepper one is a bit meh. Yeah, I'm not too.
Yeah, no, Pepper was too. I mean, Pepper is perfect as it is. The White Album is not a very good sounding original pressing. It's there's a lot of information on one side. It's very compressed. The grooves are very shallow, so it's not cut very loud. And they put them in black inner sleeves in the original copies, and these matte black inner sleeves that scratch the hell out of them.
Really?
So it's nearly impossible to find a first mono pressing, especially, that isn't either groove worn. It's always groove worn in the same places and scratched with the marks of these inner sleeves. So the remix is good for that. You can actually hear the music, but the first pressings that are not really that good to listen to. Some of the 70s stereo ones are good, but the first pressings are really rough, very rough pressings.
How did you get into selling and collecting Beatles stuff to sell? Because it's a very niche thing, I'm sure.
Well, I used to, when I was younger, go to jumble sales and things, and you could pick up this stuff for like 50p, when it was
really?
in the early 80s or whatever, because people were getting that generation were throwing out all their 60s stuff. As like a few years ago, you'd go to an Oxfam now and they'll all be throwing out their 90s stuff. It was just that step back. And so all this was like being chucked out because it was pretty worthless. And I'd buy them and listen to them, and I'd sort of start selling them through the back of Record Collector magazine, which I discovered just after it came out. So I thought, that's okay. I can do that, make some money. And I did that for a while, and then other stuff got in the way, and I traveled and went round and whatever. And when I came back to Austria, I sort of eBay started, and I started collecting again. And I thought, well, I'll build up a nice collection of first pressing albums for myself. So I did that, and I kept upgrading, as you do, getting a better copy, replacing that. And what am I going to do with this copy I've just upgraded? Well, I'll sell it, And so that's how it sort of started, selling doubles. And then, okay, you can do that. And then other people said, oh, can you sell my records for me, And
cool.
So most of the records I sell now are from other collectors who send things to me. And, because it's a lot of work for people who don't have the time, and it's risky, and it's, so mostly I do that now, which is good. So I don't have to buy them.
Shipping is always the weird thing for me, because like if anything has like, even if the jacket has a crease in it, it drives me daft. I'm like, oh my god, I've really bad OCD, so I'm just like, oh god, no.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, corners are my things. Corners.
Yeah, the corners.
Corners. If you look at a record and it has a great corner, the rest of it's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
The bottom shelfware corners stuff. And the people I sell to, this is really important to. I mean, it can make such a difference. If you've got a dinged corner, it can knock zeros off the record. It's because for a record to survive 50, 60 years in new condition is, blows the mind. Really, if you think about it, if you have your records and you drop it.
Yeah.
So corners and condition is so important. A perfect copy of Sgt. Pepper with perfect corners and whatever, that's maybe £1,000 record,
Wow.
But with ding corners and a bit of creasing, excellent condition, maybe £40. The difference is just so astronomical, because people want the best. The best copy of your favorite album, that's what they want.
Yeah. What's the biggest gem you've found that you're like, oh my god, this is unbelievable to find it?
Finding it or buying it?
Both.
Sometimes you buy lots of records, and sometimes you get nice things in it. Finding stuff. I had it wasn't really a find, but I had an acetate of an early Beatles song called "What Goes On," which they recorded in 1960. Well, they recorded a demo of it in 1963. It's one of John Lennon's first songs, and it eventually ended up on the Rubber Soul album with different words. Ringo wrote some words, and they reworked the tune a bit. But I bought this acetate from a major auction house, actually, but they didn't really sort of list it properly. They didn't do the homework on it, and people thought, oh, it's just a demo from Rubber Soul, but it was actually John Lennon and Paul McCartney singing to a guitar and piano in early 1963, and it was planned as a follow-up to From Me to You. They were going to do this song, What Goes On, and it's not everybody's favorite Beatles song, let's put it politely. if that had come out as a single, things would have been different. Anyway, it was a different version, and it was a historical find of great importance. and I sold it eventually to a collector in Italy, and that's where it resides on my computer and down.
Do you ever regret selling anything? You're like, oh, I shouldn't have sold that one.
No, I don't think so. No, Beatles not, because it's the music which is the main thing. If I don't regret selling any artifact. I mean, I don't think so. No, because the music's always there, and that's basically what it's all about. The music. If I have a nice here Sergeant Pepper in mono on a nice clean copy, that doesn't matter what it is. So I don't think I regret selling anything. Maybe I regret selling something and it didn't go for as much money as I thought it would.
Yeah.
But letting go of something. No, if I sold my Scott Walker test pressings, I'd regret that, because I know I couldn't get that again.
Yeah.
But I could get maybe a mint copy of Sergeant Pepper somewhere.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Because nothing's rare; it's just expensive,
Especially with Beatles, like you were saying earlier, those box sets now, like they're £1,500.
Yeah, it's crazy they haven't redone them. I mean, well, it's a big operation, but yeah, they're £1,000 or something, and they still sell.
Yeah, I don't know how they haven't redone them, because Apple are such money grubbers. Like, they'll do anything for a bit of cash.
Yeah, it's you can't second guess them. You don't know I don't know what's going on in their head. I don't know. It seems to be they've done it, and I don't know. They always want to move on to something else. They tend not, like the Beatles. They tended not to go backwards. They always want to go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So whatever the next thing is, I don't know.
Yeah, they can't. I don't know how far they can go. Like what more can they do apart from just remixing all the records?
I don't know. It depends who wants to buy it. This is the thing that I've noticed with the market of the records. I mean, when I first started selling in the early 2000s on eBay, lots of people buying, lots of people selling. But the first generation fans are now passing away, and their collections are coming out, and the market for the things that I sell or watch my YouTube videos are older people, generally. Right. 60s, in their 60s or whatever. And once that generation goes, is there enough people below them to come and A, start collecting the records, and B, start buying Beatles products?
Yeah.
So, I'm second generation, so I'm doing it now, but are the people below, younger than me, going to come and do it with the same passion, if you like? I don't know,
Yeah, that was the joy of eBay when it kind of first started kicking off. You'd find some like just gems on there. Like I got so much recording equipment that was so cheap, and like now it's like astronomical. You're like, what the fuck?
You've either got to be really lucky or to get in one place on time. But it's what happened to Elvis is a perfect example. When I first started collecting, Elvis was the king. He was like the top prices, everything was expensive, everybody wanted Elvis first pressings. Now you can't give them away, everybody stopped collecting Elvis. Maybe the Sun stuff, maybe the very early stuff, but everything else is junk, because the collectors have all gone. The people who grew up with Elvis and are passing away, and nobody's replacing them. The young people are not interested in Elvis, so the Beatles have to a certain extent missed that thing, and they've carried on another generation. Whether they can another generation is debatable, I know, but yeah, Elvis sadly is the collecting
left the building.
Yeah, apart from as I said, the Sun stuff, the really great stuff, everybody still wants that, but film soundtracks, later albums, no, nothing. It's just, and you see it in auctions. You see Elvis collection, 500 albums of Elvis, some old lady's Elvis collection, £10, it's nothing.
Wow.
It's just, nobody wants it.
What do you think of the vinyl resurgence?
That's been going on a while now, isn't it?
So, yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's sort of here to stay, really. I think there's I think the sort of the hipness of it has worn off, but everyone's accepted it now. And, I think it's people. I have young daughters. I mean, my daughters are 17 and 12, and I keep saying to them, "You have nothing. You have this music on your phone. You have nothing physical to hold on to. What are you going to do?" So I think it just fills that gap, having something physical to have, which is important for music. I mean, you have a music room stacked with records. On the wall.
it's a cool thing bringing, taking a record out and reading the liner notes and putting it on. You have to physically get up to turn the record, so
Yeah.
you're kind of already more involved in it in that aspect.
It's just, but I think young people, well, maybe my daughters don't have the patience for it really. I mean, they're used to finding a song on the phone. I want to listen to that song, that song, that song. The idea of listening to an album is you got to sit down for 15 minutes and listen to 5 songs by the same artist, and that's becoming the thing, that everyone wants to just flick around and not have the patience to sit down and listen to something.
Yeah.
So hopefully that doesn't go away, but that's the thing.
That's sad for me, because the album is such a important thing. Well, I think it was more than it is now. Years ago it was more, I think it had more of a cultural aspect, and now it's music is almost not fleeting, but it's doesn't have the importance that it used to in the cultural sphere, I think.
No, absolutely. No, it's become totally disposable. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. It was so precious when you had to buy it, and you had to save up for it, or you had to sort of luckily come across it on the radio. But now it's just so disposable. You can get anything, anytime, anywhere, and you don't have to spend any money on it. And it's lost its value in a way.
Yeah, it's sad. And we get royalty checks sometimes for Spotify, and it's like 0.007 cent for a song play, and you're like, this is, someone's making money off it, but it ain't the musicians.
And you realize how lucky the musicians in the 60s and 70s were. They were making sort of doing tours to promote records. Now they do records the other way around. The touring is the big thing. The records are the sideshow now. It's all live music is where the money comes from, and it's not records. And you can't sell 1 million. Beatles were having advance orders for 1 million copies of something.
That's so crazy.
For one of their singles. It's 1 million copies of advance orders for "Can't Buy Me Love." Now you can get to number 1 with 3,000 or 4,000 sales.
It's madness.
It's bizarre, so crazy. I mean, Sgt. Pepper sold 250,000 copies in its first month. It's such a different thing these days. It's incredible.
Yeah, they lucked out, because they had that forever money, and now you're lucky if you have a year out of doing anything. And plus, record labels, they want you to sign 360 deals now. They used to never take merch off you, or your touring revenue, but now they make you sign a 360 deal, so they get everything out of you. So it's like, Jesus.
Wow.
The grind of it.
Yeah, I mean, there was bad contracts back then, but still, I mean, now it's even worse, So
yeah,
the old guys, the Beach Boys and Paul McCartney, they're just how lucky they were,
I know. I remember reading a book on Brian Wilson, and they were saying in the book, it was saying that every week he'd be getting in checks and stuff to sign that it'd be for like $500,000, and he'd be just like, whatever, It was just they were making just so much money, and they were still getting robbed by the record label.
Yeah, and their father sold the rights and stuff.
Yeah, Murray.
It's terrible. Yeah, in the Beatles, where money was going out of Apple and stuff, it's just monopoly money, And these days it's just so different. So the fact that all these records, they sold all these records, they're still here, but in the artists of today, what's going to be left in 50 years of them?
A
file on a cloud somewhere, and that's it.
Yeah, because if the world not the world, sorry, if the internet goes, what music have you have? If it's not physical, you're kind of screwed in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I know. It's like having a room full of records, having a room full of books. I mean, So I'd love to sort of have I don't have a huge collection, but a room full of records is such an amazing thing. It's but a huge phone with loads of songs on it is not the same thing. So.
Yeah, and you kind of. A lot of kids have ADHD with music. They listen to 12 seconds of a song and they go, "Oh, the next one," and you're like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, my daughter's the same. I'd show her my YouTube video in 10 seconds. You're bored. Well, it's not for you, dear. It's for older gentlemen with a longer attention span than you. Because why are you putting these titles on? They're 25 seconds long. And so, I know. Well, old people used to like theme tunes and stuff and titles of TV shows, not just. So I
How
don't
long
do
does it take you to edit your videos? Because they're very well done.
Thanks. Not too long. Not too. It's the bit I like doing most, but I'm still learning about it because I'm not so getting the sound right, getting the picture right, and I'm changing it every video. So it's a progression. But the longest part is writing it. I have to write the script and research it. Once you've got the audio and the video done, putting it together is quite quick. You know, then takes a day. So, you know, but it's a long time. The computer takes a long time to render it, of course, but editing doesn't take long. Maybe it shows.
No, it's good. I really like it. I think it's really cool.
Thanks. Well, I'm conscious of doing a certain style. When I watch some YouTubers, they either sit on the floor or whatever and sit there with a pile of records and go through them and just talk and you know, I want a sort of like an old style news report or something, like a documentary, like, you know, Tomorrow's World or something. You know, it's a bit serious, you know. So you know, like it's been done properly. So what would I want to watch? You know, maybe that's not everybody's cup of tea, but you know, I don't want it. I don't want fast cuts. I don't want this. I don't want that. I want to see what he's talking about. I want to hear something that's interesting, something I didn't know before, and I want it to sort of sound all right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Do you find yourself you learn loads more about the Beatles that you never knew about by researching?
Yeah, and you do. You think you know everything, but you don't. It's like when I'm putting something together on a video, I think, well, people know that, don't they? That's general knowledge. And then you find out there are actually people who don't know what you know. You know, they know less, and you know quite a lot, and you think, well, yeah, okay. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff to learn. There's so many I'm doing this Nimbus thing at the moment. I'm just learning about that company and other pressings. Like there was an Australian pressing the year before, which was a real big audiophile thing as well, because it seems in the early 80s Apple was still in a bit of a mess, and anyone could sort of have a Beatles tape. You know, the MFSL, they sent them to Australia. They copy, if you were an audiophile company, they would copy you a tape and send it to you, and you could put it out. But now it's like you can't even be in the same room as the Beatles tapes. You know, you're a special team and you're chosen people. But back then in the early 80s, anyone could have them, you know. It was a strange thing.
I seen McCartney put out that Flaming Pie reissue. It was so expensive though. It's like just huge, like just 10 vinyls or whatever the hell, you know, overdone kind of job, trying to get a bit of cash.
They're just plugging into these people who must have everything, and there's people like that. I mean, I did buy it, just a normal album, because I never actually heard the record before.
Oh, did you not?
I was out of popular music in the late 90s. I was being bohemian in Prague and stuff. I wasn't listening to Paul McCartney for a start. So I thought I'd just buy the normal album. It was all right, you know. But
yeah, it's nothing special. Calico Skies is a cool song. That's a great song.
Yeah, it was nice. So I like that era. I like best. I think No More Lonely Nights was a great song.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's such a. I mean, he never plays it on stage or anything, and it was such a great song. David Gilmour on guitar. It was a great song before the Broad Street thing, which really sort of made him uncool. But that was his last great song, I think. The Tug of War, then into No More Lonely Nights, and that was it for me.
Actually, Chaos and Creation in the Garden is a fantastic record.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did get that one. Yeah, I did get that one. Yeah, I remember I did get that one.
Great record. But his newer ones are naff. I'm like, oh god.
I haven't bought anything else since. I watch all the videos that, hey, it's coming out. I don't even think I'll get McCartney 3. I don't think
Yeah, I'm kind of in the fence about that one. I'm like, ugh, I don't know.
Even when I bought McCartney 2, it was like the first album I ever bought. It was like, okay, all right, okay. Some bits I like on here, and so I don't know. But he has such a drive to be still relevant. He's still, I think he's scared of not being relevant anymore, you know. And he's always wants to be on with Taylor Swift on the front cover of this.
Yeah.
He wants to. That's a bit.
There's something cringy about McCartney, like hey kind of thing. You're like, oh, dude.
Yeah, he was always a bit naff thumbs up anyway, and now he's doing it with his arm around Taylor Swift and this time. Like, oh, it's nah,
Yeah,
he should grow, be bit more graceful in his old age. I think maybe.
I think if Lennon saw him, he'd be like, Paul, cop on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hate to think what he'd say. I don't know.
What do you know anything about like the weird relationship Paul and John had? Or not Paul and John, sorry, Paul and George. It seemed like they had this weird falling out over in the 80s, and it just trickled until he passed away. Even though McCartney would probably say otherwise, but it always
I think
they
always had a love-hate relationship. I think he was always Paul was always telling George what to do from a very early age, I think, and George always resented that, and it's never as clear as it is in the anthology where he's sitting there like that, and you could see he tolerates Paul, and he obviously respects him, but I don't think he really sort of got on with him ever, really. I think they both respected each other, but the dynamic between them is so uncomfortable to watch, and it's Ringo's in the middle playing the peacemaker, and they're both sitting there like that, and it's uncomfortable.
Because you can see them even when they're sitting outside playing the ukuleles, and McCartney always has to get the last kind of word in, whatever. You're like, okay.
And George is ignoring him, carrying on and like da, 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 da. Do you remember that, George? And obviously Paul's not used to that sort of treatment from anybody, and you can see he's a bit miffed about it, because he's used to everybody smiling at him and saying, "You're great, Paul." And I think George is one of the only people who just say, "Get lost," stop messing around,
George
like he says when he walked into the house, are those vegan leather jacket, Paul? Is that always poking his finger in his ribs, always like,
yeah. And he kind of only did that anthology because he needed a bit of cash, I heard.
Yeah, I think he was always low on cash and stuff. I was reading the other day that very early on in the partnership, when they set up the Beatles, Lennon and McCartney consciously made a decision to not credit George on the songs. It's like, we're not going to do it. It's just going to be you and me, and George is not going to get it, even though he obviously contributed the solos and whatever. But they said, well, we're not doing it. It's just us two, And of course, years later, he would lost money on it and stuff, and he had his handmade films. He was doing lots of projects and things, and he wasn't flush with cash as they are, but it made him do interesting things, traveling Wilburys and stuff, and it forced him out there.
The Ruttles.
It did, yeah. And I was lucky enough to see his last British concert at the Royal Albert Hall, the Natural Law Party, in '92, was it? I think it was '92, and a friend who I was working for got some tickets, and we stood in like the fourth row of the show, and there was Gary Moore, Ringo came on to play, and Gary Moore, Eric Clapton, they're all there, like just there. It's like amazing. There's a video on a YouTube channel of mine of that bits of that concert where you can just see the back of my head, and George is looking at me.
Who the bloody hell is that down there?
Yeah, bloody hell. He's got that camera. He thought I had the camera because the camera was behind me. And he was looking for the camera. And in those days, the cameras were like this. The guy behind me was filming it. He was looking at me. The security were like... But in those days, there's the only one camera in the whole of the Albert Hall. That was it.
So what records now that aren't Beatles records are kind of the most sought after records?
The groups in the 90s are really big. Smiths. There was an auction of a while ago, a lot of Smith stuff that goes for a lot of money now. Punk stuff. Not really Oasis. I thought Oasis would come round again and get big, but they haven't really sort of gone back to they're still at the bottom of their thing. A lot of stuff from the 90s is the vinyl from the 90s is rare because it didn't sell, obviously. Bowie is still big behind you as well. I always find it weird how the Beach Boys are never really collectible. You can pick up their original albums for nothing.
Yeah,
it's such great music, and they're not rare. Nobody really wants them. Or wants to pay a lot of money for them.
I think the problem with the Beach Boys was that, you know, in the 80s they became like you see them playing with like Ronald Reagan at it's, that kind of, they look like golfers.
And
You
their
know, that
Hawaiian
kind of,
shirts and stuff, and
yeah, they
caps,
became
baseball caps.
a joke of what they, you know, when I first got into the Beach Boys, I got into Pet Sounds. That was the first Beach Boys record I got into. And I was like, fuck, this is amazing. And then when I went back the way, I'm like, what? You know, that's the idea, whatever. When you say to people the Beach Boys, they think surfing. They don't think Pet Sounds. Maybe now I think it's changing a bit more, because you always hear like God Only Knows and Wouldn't It Be Nice in TV shows, but
I thought you were going to say supermarkets. It's a bad thing.
But like,
no, I agree. They were actually they were here in Linz in Austria in the 80s, and I think they did exactly that sort of thing. The flowery shirts and the baseball caps, and Mike Love going. I mean, he's not the great ambassador for the Beach Boys anyway.
No. There's a guy called Peter Ames Carlin who had this. He's a brilliant book about Brian Wilson. I had read his book years ago, and I got him on the podcast. But he was telling me that they've, since the mid 70s, after that Greatest Hits Endless Summer came out, when they kind of it propelled them back in, they've been playing the exact same set list nearly since the 70s. Yeah. Starting the same song, end on the same song.
Yeah, they stopped creating, because they did all that interesting stuff, Holland and all these sort of things, and that was interesting progression and that sort of stuff, and then it all went, and the Beach Boys Love You, which was sort of crazy, sort of quite pure as well. That was great. I like that. And and I always remember when I lived in Prague, they came to Prague in '69. I think they were one of the only Western bands that played in Prague. They're part of that tour they were doing there, and you could always find their records in Prague and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's the Beach Boys, and the music is just such an incredible thing. I watched groups like Fender Tones or whatever. They recreate the sound of these songs perfectly, and you see the intricacy and the beauty of all this music, and it's but as far as vinyl and collecting goes, then unless it's a mint copy of Pet Sounds, then everything else is really not really valuable at all, which is good if you're a collector.
Those, like I was saying to you earlier, those analog production records that they redid a few years ago, they sound unbelievable, because they did them all from the master's tape. And what's his name?
Kevin Gray.
Kevin Gray, yeah, he did them. Amazing mastering engineer.
Yeah,
he's done all those Tone Poet Blue Note records now, which sound phenomenal.
Yeah, jazz. I mean, you're a big jazz guy,
yeah?
Yeah, it's something that's waiting for me, I feel, when I stop doing this.
Man, once you get into it, it's like it's like anything. It's just another world you go into.
My friend's a big jazz collector and whatever, and I see all the stuff, and he shows me, and I'm like, wow, that's so great, but it's such a big pool to get into, and I know once I dip my toe, I'd be in, So
you get in, because you read the back, you're like, oh, he played bass on this, and then he's got his own album, and then he played drums with him, and then it's just everything's like connecting to each other, and that's the cool thing though with Blue Note. Like, I know that when those Tone Poet came out records, I hadn't heard half of them, and I was just like, I just bought it because I knew I just like it. Whereas if I was buying some random rock record, it could be pretty bad. That's that's the difference.
If it's on Blue Note, you're okay. It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, and like a lot of those were recorded in Rudy Van Gelder's parents' house at the start. In a and they just sound phenomenal. Like,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
One day I'll get a collection of those. So I will.
So what's the next video you're putting up?
Next one is this Sgt. Pepper comparison. People sending me sort of strange sort of suggestions of things to do. I've got quite a big list. I mean, I've got singles. I've got the 2012 box set to do. There's this Sgt. Pepper to do. Do something on the Red and the Blue albums. I mean, I've got a huge list of stuff, and it's developed to more of an audiophile thing. I started it as a sort of collector's thing.
Yeah.
But more people are interested in the sound. I think
Right.
it's you've got Beatles records, but you want the best sounding Beatles. People are always trying to find some other dimension in the music to discover. And once you've got the original pressing, you want the best sounding one. And that's to have the best sounding pressing of your favorite album is like what everybody wants. So, if you can help them find that, it's difficult on YouTube because you can't say, hey, listen to this, and you can play them a sample.
Yeah.
Because A, YouTube doesn't, excuse me, allow it, and B, it would sound horrible over YouTube anyway because of the compression and stuff. You wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly fighting with people saying, stop talking and play it. Can't, So, but just pretend you're down the pub talking with your mate about sound quality. That's and it's subjective anyway. What I think is not what somebody else would think. So.
Are you always going to do it on the Beatles, or are you going to go start doing little tidbits of other things?
I don't know if I know other stuff so well. I mean, I could do Scott Walker one, I suppose.
That'd be cool.
Because there's some horrible pressings of Scott Walker around, so really? Easy to do. There's that one series that came out a few years ago, Four Men with Beards. They reissued the Scott Walker sets, and they're meant to sound horrible. Right. So that would be quite easy to do, but. So I don't know if I get time. The Stones things, people say, should I do a Stones one? But the Stones sound quality is even more. It's the Stones and sound quality don't really go together. Let's put it that way. There's not great sounding Stones album.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But there's so many things Beatle-wise to do. I don't think I'm going to get through everything.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff like.
There is cassettes, tapes, picture discs, and does the picture disc sound any good? The colored vinyl, does that sound any good? It's supposed to sound good. There's so many, the Brazilian copy sounds great, but the Venezuelan copy sounds terrible, and this sort of stuff. The Taiwanese one sounds like it was round with a finger. It keeps going. There's so many different permutations, so many different pressings and cuttings that you could endlessly compare things. I don't have them. I know people who do have them.
Yeah.
And eventually I'll borrow them and do them, so.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I love your channel. It's great.
Thank you.
I sit down with a cup of tea and watch it. I really like it, man.
I'll make the next one a bit longer for you. But
I drink it quick, don't worry.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure to be on. I've really enjoyed talking with you too, and thanks for having me on. It's been great.
It's great to have you on. Thank you very much for your time. We really, really appreciate it, man.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Andrew, have a lovely, lovely night.
Thanks a lot,
yeah,
you too.
Nice. See you, brother.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.